Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the May 27th MLB DraftKings lineup card. 13 games on the slate tonight. 2 of them do have rain in the forecast, but we'll make sure we keep an eye on those throughout the show. And a lot of interdivisional matchups, so a lot of experience between pitchers and hitters on the docket tonight. So looking forward to that. We can really dig in and figure out who has some good numbers against their opponents, see if we can find any values and whatnot. But with 13 games on the slate tonight, let's get right into it. All statistics provided today and every day are from baseballreference.com. It is the best tool out there for any baseball statistic related item you want to see. Player comparisons, historical seasons, umpire statistics, anything you can think of. Baseball Reference has it. Go check them out. It's well worth your investment. There are links to my social media in the descriptions of all 3 videos to the streaming services. This is where I post my betting cards for the golf content that I put out, as well as interesting research for golf and baseball. So if you want to be a part of that research and get that knowledge, make sure you give me a follow at the links in the descriptions. And then finally, we are live. Chat's open. Who are you thinking about playing tonight? Do you see the slate as I do, with one position pretty darn scarce, and trying to figure out how we're going to fill that spot in the lineup and maneuver around that? Do you see anything in particular with starting pitchers or anything like that? So jump in chat. Let's have some fun. But let's cover the slate for May 27th. And we start in Washington, where the Rockies take on the Nationals. And what I am seeing from this game is a little bit of a toss-up to me. I'm not terribly impressed with either pitcher in this game. If I'm going to go one way, it'll be Austin Gomber. You see Aaron Sanchez here, just a terrible start to the year. He is not a strikeout pitcher by any means. Only 13 strikeouts in 28 innings, so not even a half a strikeout per inning. You're not going to be getting a whole lot of points from Aaron Sanchez today, especially against a pretty good Rockies lineup, even away from home. Sanchez averaging less than 5 points per start, and Gomber is averaging 13 points per start, but some of the numbers against him from Washington's side is pretty good. But let's cover the Rockies lineup first against Aaron Sanchez, and not a whole lot of experience between these two sides. You do have CJ Cron, who's 2 for 10. You have Charlie Blackmon, who I've highlighted here, 3 for 11 with a double. So not too bad. I'm not crazy about Blackmon's price. The reason why you're going to want to use the Rockies is to focus on beating Aaron Sanchez, who just hasn't been good, like I've mentioned. But this will highlight the position that I think is pretty darn scarce right off the bat. I do not see much in the shortstop market today. Whoever starts for the Rockies, either Garrett Hampson or Jose Iglesias, is a pretty decent option today. Obviously, I'm going to prefer Hampson if he's playing, much cheaper, although he has not had quite the year that Iglesias has had so far. Iglesias is hitting 299. It's a pretty empty 299. He does have 9 doubles, but no power output from Iglesias. You're banking on him either driving in a run or getting driven in, and that's a little difficult to bank on considering he generally hits 6th or 7th in this lineup. Garrett Hampson has had an even worse start to his season, only hitting 162. He's mainly a speed threat on the bases, trying to get you 5 points there. But their numbers against Aaron Sanchez aren't terrible. Jose Iglesias is actually 3 for 7, obviously all singles, but there is some positive experience here. And then Garrett Hampson, 3 for 6 with a homer. So both of them have, in small samples, decent numbers against Aaron Sanchez. And then the aforementioned Charlie Blackmon. I also don't hate Ryan McMahon. He is only 1 for 7, but has 3 walks a double. So if you're really trying to pick on Aaron Sanchez, you can do it with CJ Cron and McMahon, the shortstop that is starting for the Rockies. That's going to be pretty darn expensive. I don't like doing a Rockies stack today. If anything, I'm going to be soloing Garrett Hampson or Jose Iglesias if I have the money for it, but I don't feel great about it. So not really sure I'm going to touch the Rockies side. And then on Washington's side, not a whole lot here either, although Cesar Hernandez has some pretty darn good numbers against Austin Gomber. 3 for 5, all of them singles, but he's the one with the most success with any kind of experience against Austin Gomber. Most of these Washington hitters have 2 or 3 plate appearances. And then I've highlighted 2 speculative outfielders here. First being Yadiel Hernandez. He has seemed to have found his way regularly into the lineup. He is actually 2 for 3 against Austin Gomber, even as a left-handed hitter. So it is a non-zero factor that him hitting left-handed, Gomber throwing left-handed, it could be a day off for Hernandez. But the play that I really like that could really pay off his price is Lane Thomas. I've mentioned him before. He is a right-handed bat, strictly a platoon player, but with Gomber throwing left-handed, Lane Thomas hits about 350 in his career against lefties, and against Austin Gomber himself, Lane Thomas 1 for 2 with a walk. The 1 hit is a homer. The wind is blowing out today at Nationals Park, so Lane Thomas could be a decent speculation choice for your lineup at 2,700. But not a lot in this game that really excites me. Nothing from the pitching side. And then maybe Lane Thomas if I'm looking for some price savings. I'm really not crazy about stacking Rockies. Even though Aaron Sanchez has been pretty bad, I would probably solo a shortstop, either Hampson or Iglesias, if I were going there in this game for the Rockies. We move to Game 2 in Fenway Park for the first interdivisional battle between Baltimore and Boston. Again, wind blowing out today at Fenway. You can see how many hitters I've highlighted for Boston's side, but let's cover Baltimore's lineup first. Against Garrett Whitlock, who has inserted himself into Boston's starting rotation seemingly for the foreseeable future. With the numbers that Whitlock has, he's still only averaging 11 points per start. He is quite strikeout dependent. He does have a lot of strikeouts, 40 strikeouts in 32 innings, so you do like that ratio there. But since being inserted into the rotation and starting to get hit quite a bit more often, he does not have a lot of walks, so you do like that. His whip is pretty respectable at 1.2, and the numbers for Baltimore's hitters just aren't good against Garrett Whitlock, again, mainly from his time in relief. So him moving into the starting rotation, facing Baltimore for the first time as a starter, I believe. I've highlighted Anthony Santander, just 1 for 3. Most players here on Baltimore's side have just 1 hit against Whitlock in these handful of plate appearances, 3, 4. For example, Cedric Mullins, 1 for 4. I did not list him because I do not like his price today. I believe there are a lot of outfield values to be had out there, so I didn't list Cedric Mullins. Another potential play, Ryan Mountcastle, 1 for 4 against Garrett Whitlock. All of these being singles. Garrett Whitlock has not given up an extra base hit to any of the Baltimore hitters. And Baltimore's lineup is the one lineup that I have seen that is out. So we'll cover all of the lineups that come out throughout the show at the end. But I really like Garrett Whitlock today against a Baltimore side that is still finding its stride. I did not highlight Adley Rutschman, the top prospect in baseball who's now been called up by Baltimore. Not terribly, not to say that I'm not impressed, but I'm still wanting to see a bit more of a sample size before I get a gauge on where I think his value is. So that is the look that I have for Baltimore. Again, not a lot excites me, which means I really like Garrett Whitlock today at a pretty cheap price. I'm hoping for the strikeout numbers. If he goes anything more than 5 1/3, 5 2/3, I will consider it gravy. I'm really trying to rack up the strikeouts against this pretty, I don't want to say feeble, but lineup that does struggle to make contact at times. So looking at that angle there. And then for Boston against Kyle Bradish. Bradish has not faced many of these Boston hitters either. He did face them one time earlier this season. Pitched fairly okay. Gave up a double to Rafael Devers and a homer to Christian Arroyo. So that's why those two are highlighted, especially Arroyo, who is at the shortstop starved position today, at least in my mind. So I like Arroyo potentially as an option at 2,800 at shortstop. Christian Vasquez at catcher for 3,100. Catcher is always starved for offensive production with the outfield or with the wind blowing out to left center. Vasquez did have a hit in his in the game against Kyle Bradish, and then quite speculative, but Jackie Bradley, even though he is not known for his hitting, he is generally a pretty good bat against against right-handed pitching. Jackie Bradley only hitting .213 this year, but he does have 12 doubles. He can get a steal if he gets on base. He is averaging 1.2 points per plate appearance. It's quite speculative, but again, with the wind blowing out, I do think Boston's going to put up some numbers. This offense is red hot right now. I think Jackie Bradley Jr. could provide quite a bit of value. So that is a look at the game at Fenway today. Let's move now to Detroit, where Cleveland takes on the Tigers in Comerica, and you've got Shane Bieber for the Guardians taking on Alex Fado for the Tigers, and what's seemingly a very one-sided pitching matchup. Bieber, even though only at 1-3, has 46 strikeouts in 45 innings. He has not pitched too terribly. You see 3.5 ERA. He is quite expensive for my liking at $9,000, but you are getting the strikeouts there. I've only highlighted a couple of players here. Again, Fado is a rookie this year, has not thrown against the Guardians much, but he does have one game against them this season already. And in that game, Josh Naylor had a homer, so I've highlighted him there at first base as a potential option. And then Owen Miller at first and second. He was the only player in that game that had 2 hits, so that's why I've highlighted those 2 players. Jose Ramirez was 0 for 2. Andres Jimenez was 0 for 3. Miles Straw 0 for 3. So the normal Cleveland Guardians players that I generally highlight did not have a good game against Fado. Again, just one game sample size, so don't want to put too much stock into that, but I have highlighted the 2 players that had a decent game earlier this season against Fado. And then for the Tigers, there's not a lot I like here, although these players that I've listed have some decent numbers against Bieber. But I still, if I'm going into this game, I'm going on Cleveland's side. But we mentioned how the catcher position is generally starved. Tucker Barnhart has, from his time in Cincinnati, has some decent numbers against Bieber. 3 for 10 with a double. He is averaging 2 points per plate appearance against Shane Bieber. That is nothing to scoff at, especially at 2,300. It could be a lot of value here. Now, Barnhart on the season has not produced much at all. He is hitting .258, but only a .292 slugging, only a .292 on base. So he has really, really struggled so far this season. Only 3 doubles, no homers. So if you're thinking about using Tucker Barnhart, it's for the price savings and the numbers against Bieber in his career. Miguel Cabrera in his career, 4 for 18 with a double and a homer, only hitting 222, but the points per plate appearance is being boosted by that homer. I don't love the play, but at 2,800, pretty good value if you think Cabrera can get a couple of hits and really try to stack some prime players, or if you're wanting to spin up on pitching, Cabrera could be a decent option. Jonathan Scope is the Tiger that I'm actually pretty intrigued about. Scope has had a pretty rough start to his season, only hitting 172, does not draw a lot of walks. He's only getting on base 22% of the time, but it's his numbers against Bieber that are quite interesting. He's 6 for 20, hitting 300 against Shane Bieber with 2 doubles and a homer. He's averaging 1.6 points per plate appearance against Bieber in his career. Scope is pretty darn interesting at 3,200. If you are not willing to spend up on second base today, which there are a lot of second basemen that I believe are worth spending up on, but if you want to perhaps save some money or don't have enough to spend up to them, Scope's an interesting option today. And then finally, Robbie Grossman, generally hitting at the top of this Tiger lineup, is hitting in his career against Shane Bieber. He is 4 for 13 with 4 walks, so he's averaging almost 1.5 points per plate appearance. He only has 1 double, 4 for 13, but Grossman's season so far is trending in the wrong direction. I don't love the price, and the only reason I would even consider him is if I'm going to maybe mini stack him with Jonathan Scope. He's only hitting 189. He's really scuffling as of late, is Grossman. Only 5 doubles, no homers. I list him here, just like Tucker Barnhart, for the career numbers against Bieber. So, if anything, I'm going to come into this game on Cleveland's side, maybe sneak in a Jonathan Scope in a lineup or two. But I really do like Josh Naylor against Alex Fado. Fado is averaging 12 points per start, but not a lot of strikeouts, only 14 strikeouts in 21 innings. I do like the matchup for Josh Naylor. And then if you believe in Bieber and the strikeouts, 9,000 is going to be worth it. I just think there are better values in the pitching market, but Bieber's a pretty safe play, I would say, today. Let's move to Game 4, and one of the games that has rain in the forecast is Philadelphia in Citi Field to take on the Mets. So we moved there, and this is a pitching matchup that I was pretty excited about to exploit from the Mets side. And then Zach Eflin, I have not seen any report of injury or anything, but Bailey Falter is getting the start for Philadelphia. 0-1 this year, has not pitched terrible, to a 3.75 ERA, as you see, and there is not a lot of exposure or experience on this Mets side against Falter. But for the Phillies lineup, there's really only one player that has very good numbers against Carlos Carrasco, and I've highlighted him here. It's Gene Segura, 7 for 16, a double and 3 homers in his career against Carlos Carrasco. He's averaging 3.4 points per plate appearance against Carrasco in his career, and having a very solid season overall, hitting 289, on base 34% of the time, 6 stolen bases. There's a lot to like here with Gene Segura. The issue being, I don't like the price because of the lack of numbers elsewhere in this Phillies lineup against Carlos Carrasco. With the exception of Segura, Carrasco's pitched really darn well against the Philly hitters. Bryce Harper, 1 for 6. Nick Castellanos from his time in Detroit, and Carrasco in his time in Cleveland. Castellanos is only hitting 217 with 4 doubles, no homers. Castellanos is averaging less than 1 point per plate appearance. JT Realmuto is 2 for 7, both singles. So Carrasco's pitched really darn well against the Philly hitters. Has quite a few strikeouts against them as well. Carrasco is an upper tier pitcher that I really like today, even more so than Shane Bieber. And you also get some strikeout upside with Carlos Carrasco, although not as much as Shane Bieber. Carrasco averaging more than 16 points per start. A lot to like there. But Segura is a prime option at second, even with some standalone value with his numbers in his career against Carrasco. And then against Bailey Falter, I've only highlighted 2 names here. It's the only players that have any modicum of success. Pete Alonso, and it's more speculative, honestly, with Alonso. The one plate appearance was a walk, but the wind's blowing out at Citi Field, or at least projected to blow out at Citi Field today. So right-handed power bat against the left-handed throwing Bailey Falter. You like that matchup just from a baseball perspective. And then Eduardo Escobar could be a decent mid-price value at third base. Again, 1 for 1. All of these Mets hitters have very small sample sizes, but 1 for 1 against Bailey Falter with it being a triple. So, and Escobar doesn't get enough credit for the kind of year he is having. Now he's only hitting .230, but he does have 12 doubles, a couple of homers, slugging 37 or 370. Now he is not getting on base a whole lot, but he's pretty consistent in the sense that he's going to get the majority of the starts at third base. Generally hitting 5th or 6th in this Mets lineup, has plenty of opportunities for to drive guys in. There's a lot to like here with Escobar. It's just if you're willing to go on a very small sample size and the wind blowing out. So if I come to this game, it's in standalone value only for Gene Segura. Maybe take some speculation, although it's pretty expensive to go on speculation, but I do like Pete Alonso's matchup, and then I really like Carlos Carrasco as a top-end starter today. We go to Game 5. I was going to say the other game with rain in the forecast. It is not. It's actually Cleveland in Detroit. That is the second game with rain in the forecast. I did not, or I failed to mention that. So those two games, this one here and the Cleveland and Detroit game, are the ones with rain in the forecast. But we move to probably the most interesting game, at least to me, on the slate today. It is the Yankees in Tampa, in Tropicana, to face Tampa Bay. Jameson Taillon against Jeffrey Springs. I hope you all joined in my success last week using Jeffrey Springs. I mentioned at 4,000 he was very intriguing but very risky. It turned out very well. He pitched amazing last week. Single-handedly got me quite a bit of money on a couple of lineups. But Jeffrey Springs, he is still only averaging 9 points per appearance, but a lot of that is being from relief. But he has 27 strikeouts in 27 innings. The whip is at .8. That is spectacular. The danger with Springs today, throwing left-handed against a right-handed dominant, really, Yankees lineup. Now, some of that the scare from the Yankees, at least from the right-handed side, is out. Giancarlo Stanton is on the IL. So the numbers against Springs are pretty middling, to be fair. You have Aaron Judge is only 1 for 1. And then, surprisingly, with Springs throwing left-handed and Gallo hitting left-handed, but Gallo actually has a hit in his career against Jeffrey Springs. Those two players, Judge and Gallo, are the only ones that have a hit against Jeffrey Springs in their career. Again, don't read too much into that. Springs most of the time has been in relief, only recently getting stretched out into a starting role. But the two Yankees that have hits against him are highlighted here. And then Taillon against the Rays. I do not like Tyone's price. Now, he has averaged 15 points per start, 4-1. Not a whole lot of strikeouts for the amount of innings he's pitched, but he does not give up a lot of walks. But the Rays hitters have some fairly decent numbers here. I've highlighted a couple of players. Yandy Diaz, generally the leadoff man for this Tampa lineup. His numbers against Jameson Taillon, 2 for 4 with a double and a walk. And then the other one, surprisingly, is Kevin Kiermaier. Generally a light-hitting outfielder, known more for defense, just like Jackie Bradley Jr. But Kiermaier, in his career against Jameson Taillon, 2 for 2 with a walk, one of those 2 hits being a double. So some interesting potential there if you might want to stack some Rays players. Starting with Kiermaier and Yandy Diaz. I really like Diaz today. Wander Franco, 1 for 2. Arozarena has started to heat up. Now, he went 0 for 4 last night, but last Saturday, I believe, I was advocating you hold off on using Arozarena until he started to show signs of life. He showed a lot of signs of life. He has gotten his batting average all the way up to 251 when at this time last week it was sitting in the 220s. So 251 for Arozarena, quite a bit of on base, has 7 stolen bases. Arozarena could be interesting. I didn't highlight him. Don't love the price on Arozarena, especially with the outfield values that I see today. But if you want to stack Rays, that's certainly an option as well. Jeffrey Springs is pretty darn interesting at 6,300. Very, very risky, like I thought he would be last week. It turned out to work last week. I'm quite on the fence on whether to use him again today. With Stanton out, it certainly makes me lean more towards using Springs than not. But, there are still a lot of danger here in that Yankees lineup. So kind of on the fence with that one. We move to Game 6 on the slate tonight, in a game that I am very, very excited to attack on both sides. Like I mentioned last week with the Seattle and Boston game when Trevor Story had his grand slam as my lock. My lock in this is in this game today. The wind is supposed to be blowing us straight out today at Truist Park. You've got 2 pitchers going that aren't terrible, but the numbers against the opposing lineup are just horrendous. So let's start with Ian Anderson facing the visiting Marlins today. Ian Anderson, 3-3, 4.07 ERA. Not pitching terrible. 12 points per start, but he does not accrue a lot of strikeouts. His WHIP is pretty high at 1.36, so he's given up 37 hits in 42 innings. And the numbers against him, I mentioned how I liked a lot of the second base higher priced options. The highest second baseman I like, Segura, I really like today, but my best second base play today is Jazz Chisholm, especially considering the lineup around him has had a lot of success. Jazz Chisholm in his career against Ian Anderson, 5 for 13, a double and a homer, averaging 2.1 points per plate appearance. And the season he is having is just spectacular, hitting 290, getting on base 34% of the time, 6 stolen bases. A lot to like here with Jazz Chisholm hitting leadoff, so you know he's going to get the plate appearances. I really like Jazz Chisholm today. You're going to be paying for it at $5,300, but I do like him. But let's go in order here. Jacob Stallings having a decent campaign so far for Miami. Only hitting 221, but it's his numbers against Ian Anderson. 3 for 6 with a double at a position that's really scarce for offense all the time. Stallings hitting 221. That's a pretty empty 221. Only 4 doubles and 1 homer. You'll have to see if he's in the lineup today against Anderson. If he is, I don't hate the $3,600 price tag. I think there's better options at catcher, but what makes Stallings appealing is the fact that I think the Marlins as a whole have a very good matchup with against Ian Anderson. So stacking Marlins is as an option that I'm trying to use quite a bit today. Jesus Aguilar for the Marlins, having a fine season, hitting .267 on the year, 6 doubles, 5 homers. His numbers against Ian Anderson, 5 for 14, a double and a homer. He too, like Jazz Chisholm, averaging 2.1 points per plate appearance, generally hitting second for the Marlins. So I really like Chisholm and Aguilar. You're going to get the plate appearances. There's just a lot to like here with this Marlins offense today. I've mentioned Miguel Rojas because of the scarcity at shortstop today. Miguel Rojas only hitting .207 on the year. You don't like that, but his slugging percentage for hitting .207 is .306, so he's got quite a few extra base hits. His numbers against Ian Anderson, he's 3 for 9 with a double, not terrible. Again, 3,000, mid-priced option. It's the appeal of all of the Marlins in combination, a full stack, that brings Rojas's value up into the mention category today. But my lock today is Jesus Sanchez, having a pretty darn good season. 221, the average isn't there, but third on this team in RBIs, 11 extra base hits. His numbers against Ian Anderson are ridiculous. 5 for 9, 2 doubles, a homer. He's averaging more than 3 points per plate appearance against Ian Anderson in his career. You combine that with all of the success that these other Marlin hitters have had against Ian Anderson. Jesus Sanchez is one of the locks that I have for today. I really like this Marlins offense today. And at the same time, this Braves lineup against Trevor Rogers should do very well. I expect this to be a high-scoring game, so we all know how this works. It's going to go 2-0, and you should have taken the starting pitchers. But for Atlanta, Trevor Rogers, 2-5, has not pitched all that fantastic so far. Now, he does have the strikeout numbers, 34 in 36 and a third innings, but he gets hit around quite a bit. His walks are pretty high. He has a 1.54 whip, so he's going to give up a lot of traffic, or there's going to be a lot of traffic against him today. Probably the one player that I really want to spend up on, if it's not Jazz Chisholm, is Ronald Acuna Jr. His numbers against Trevor Rogers are quite asinine. 4 for 8, hitting .500. He's got 2 doubles and a homer, so 3 of the 4 hits he has against Trevor Rogers are extra base hits. He's also drawn 3 walks. Everyone knows his propensity to steal bases. If he does draw a walk, he's averaged 3.2 points per plate appearance against Trevor Rogers in his career. Really like Ronald Acuna. You're going to pay the premium for him. I think you'll be worth it today. But elsewhere, let's go down the list. Travis d'Arnaud against Trevor Rogers. 4 for 8 in his career, like Ronald Acuna Jr. The same, 2 doubles and a homer. So he has the same exact numbers there against Trevor Rogers that Acuna does. He is not drawn the walks that Acuna has, so that's why he is averaging just a little under 3 points per plate appearance. But d'Arnaud on the season hitting .244, not getting on base a whole lot, only drawn 3 walks, and at the price at $4,800, it's very, very steep. Now, if you want to stack Braves, legitimately, Travis d'Arnaud is a great option. I did not list William Contreras. He's having a fantastic season. He's even more expensive than Travis d'Arnaud. I think William Contreras would be a decent option. He's actually 3rd on the team, this Braves team, in homers with 7 in about half of the plate appearances. So he is having one hell of a slugging year so far. But I highlighted d'Arnaud Dansby Swanson at the scarce shortstop position. This is the one shortstop that I really, really like today. Swanson's numbers also being promoted to second in the batting order is going to help his value as well, especially if it's Acuna and then Swanson and then Olsen. You're getting a whole lot of plate appearances. Again, emphasizing that I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. Swanson's numbers against Trevor Rogers in his career: 5 for 9, 3 doubles and a homer. You can just see these numbers against Trevor Rogers. He's just not pitched well against Atlanta in his career. I mentioned Acuna, and then 2 outfielders. I highlighted the cheaper of the options. I highlighted Duvall, who's only at 2,600. Duvall hitting .333 in his career against Trevor Rogers, so 2 for 6 with a double. But the other one is Marcell Ozuna. He's at 4,000. He has a homer in his career against Trevor Rogers, but is only 2 for 10. So if you want to go with the bigger boom-bust option, all or nothing approach, Ozuna at 4,000 I don't hate. But I highlighted Duvall as the cheaper option if you're trying to build a full stack of Braves. So both of these teams I really like stacking. Just like I mentioned last week that I was going to try to put as many Mariners and Red Sox, and I wouldn't mind stacking an entire game of them. This is a game I'm not going to mind trying to put an entire stack together either. Really like both offenses today in Truist Park. We move to Game 7. Kansas City is at Target Field to take on the Twins in a matchup that was seen last week in Kauffman Stadium. The Twins were in Kansas City last weekend. Now we come up further north to Minneapolis and Target Field. Brad Keller pitched against the Twins. Believe it was Saturday. Did not fare well. I was all over Luis Arias and Max Kepler. They had a big game. And I'm highlighting them here again, although their prices have now risen. Max Kepler is all the way up to 4,700. Arias all the way up to 4,600. Arias only with first base eligibility, so that really caps his value or his potential there. But the numbers against Brad Keller are stellar. In his career, Arias is 6 for 10 with a couple of walks. He is averaging, what is it over here? He's averaging a little bit over 2 points per plate appearance. Not the highest for a first baseman, but if you're trying to do a mini stack with Max Kepler or adding a Jorge Polanco, I don't hate it. But the star here is Max Kepler against Brad Keller. 6 for 16, a double, 2 homers, averaging 2.4 points per plate appearance against Brad Keller, who hasn't thrown bad. You can see 1-4, only a 3.2 ERA. He just doesn't get a lot of run support. This Royals offense is just not very good. He's not a strikeout pitcher, so Keller is still averaging 13.5 points per start. But the Twins hitters, particularly Arias and Kepler, have some very good numbers against him. And then for the Royals against Bailey Ober, somebody I really like today, Bailey Ober. He's averaging almost 14 points per start. He has 20 strikeouts in 24 2/3 innings. Pretty good ratio. The whip, very respectable at 1.13. And the Royals hitters, I've highlighted a couple here that have some decent numbers, but otherwise, Ober's fared pretty darn well against them. Now, Whit Merrifield is 3 for 6 in his career against Ober with a double and a triple. He's the player that I probably would be most excited about using for Kansas City, but you'd be paying for it. I like other second basemen more. I think there are better values in the outfield. That's what really limits Whit Merrifield for me, and the fact that this offense just isn't all that good. And then the only other couple of players that have a lot of success, Andrew Benintendi, 2 for 5 in his career against Bailey Ober, and really the star of this offense without Salvador Perez in it. Benintendi hitting .329, a lot of that in singles, but he has 5 doubles, 2 homers, gets on base 40% of the time. There's a lot to like there with Benintendi. And I mentioned Nicky Lopez. I don't like the fact that he's probably going to hit ninth. If he is hitting in the 2-hole, more than likely Whit Merrifield's hitting leadoff. But if Nicky Lopez is hitting in the 2-hole, take a look at Nicky Lopez. 2,200, very, very cheap, especially at a shortstop position that's scarce, as I've mentioned several times. Or if you want to go with price savings at second base at 2,200. Nicky Lopez 2 for 5 in his career, just like Andrew Benintendi, just doesn't have the walks that Benintendi does against Ober. But if I come into this game at all, I really like Bailey Ober, mid-price option. Going to use him. Really like Max Kepler. I'm going to try to use him in a mini stack if I can, but I think he provides enough standalone value to use Kepler on his own, because English is always my specialty. So that is the look of the game in Minnesota at Target Field. We move to the premier matchup in terms of divisional opponents. We go to Busch Stadium, where the two class teams of the National League Central face off. Milwaukee is in St. Louis. You have Brandon Woodruff, who pitched excellent last weekend. I had mentioned that you might want to be cautious with him. He had not pitched well that up to last weekend's start. Then comes out and dominates, and you'll have to pay the price for him. But the strikeouts are there. 49 strikeouts in 40 innings. Now he is 5-2. He's getting run support, averaging 16 and 16.7 points per plate, 16.7 points per start. That's one of the highest of the day today. Again, you get all the strikeout upside. But let's cover the Milwaukee hitters first against Dakota Hudson. Hudson has pitched fairly well. 3-2, 3.6 ERA. But he's only averaging 10 points per start because you do not get the strikeouts with Dakota Hudson, and he does not go long into games. He has 40 innings in 8 games, literally 5 innings per start, giving up quite a bit of hits and quite a few walks. His whip is at 1.4, quite a bit higher than what you want from a guy who is not a strikeout pitcher. And the numbers for the Brewers against Dakota Hudson are pretty good. Highlighted Rowdy Tellez. Now he's only 1 for 2. It is a double. He has arguably been the Brewers' best hitter, hitting .247, leads the team in doubles, leads the team in homers, slugging .507. The left-handed power bat against a right-handed throwing pitch-to-contact player like Dakota Hudson with the wind blowing out. There's a lot to like here in Rowdy Tellez. And then Christian Yelich starting to really heat up. He has 9 doubles, 5 homers, slugging .402, averaging 1.7 points per plate appearance on the season. And then his numbers against Dakota Hudson, 2 for 7. Both of the hits are homers. So two really good plays that I like there. Not really interested in going anywhere else for the Milwaukee lineup, but I really like the 2 players that I've highlighted here. So going to try to mini stack those some today. And then for the Cardinals, Brandon Woodruff has faced this Cardinals team, or at least the Cardinals hitters, quite a bit. And as potent of a lineup as St. Louis has, Woodruff has done pretty well against them, and a lot of strikeouts, which is Brandon Woodruff's game. But for example, Paul Goldschmidt averaging 0.8 points per plate appearance. He's only 6 for 27 in his career against Woodruff with a double. Nolan Arenado, 3 for 16. Tommy Edman, 4 for 18. Bader, 4 for 15. A lot of these guys just don't have a whole lot of hits or a good batting average, and the ones that do are all singles. There's a lot of mediocrity to bad numbers against Woodruff on this St. Louis side. So the one player that I've highlighted is Nolan Gorman, the rookie. I think he might be able to provide some value for you at second base if you're looking to save some money. Generally hitting 6th or 7th. I'm really going to be intrigued if he's hitting second behind Tommy Edman. But generally that's Paul Goldschmidt's spot in the lineup. But Gorman, in his very few games as a professional, hitting 263 with a couple of doubles. He's drawn a few walks, so interesting here. But I really do like Brandon Woodruff against the Cardinals today. Him and Carrasco are two of the upper tier pitchers that I really like. And then there's one pretty obvious one later on the slate. But if I come into this game a lot, it's going to be on Milwaukee's side. Yelich, good numbers against Hudson. Tellez, speculative, but really like the potential there. And then Woodruff for the strikeouts. We move to game number 9. We are at Angel Stadium, where the Blue Jays take on the Angels. And you will see that I have not a lot here. I just don't know what to make of this game. Now, Alek Manoah, second highest priced pitcher on the docket tonight. The Angels just haven't faced him. And at the same side, Chase Silseth has had 2 major league career starts. They were both against the A's. So that's why I haven't highlighted anybody on Toronto's side. Now, last night, Toronto's offense kind of broke out, it seems. So I'm not going to highlight anybody in particular. If you want to pick on Chase Silseth, the normal players will probably apply. Bo Bichette at shortstop with the scarcity it has. Vlad Guerrero, George Springer. I just didn't highlight anybody in particular because they don't have any numbers against Silseth. So let's talk about Alek Manoah against this Angels lineup. Manoah has pitched very, very well so far this year. 21.5 points per start, 5-1, 43 strikeouts in 50 innings. 50 innings in 8 starts. You're getting more than 6 innings per start. A lot of points here for Manoah. His whip is under 1. He's just had a spectacular season. Now, the Angels, the 2 hitters that have had success against him, Shohei Ohtani, 1 for 3 with a homer. Jared Walsh, 1 for 3 with a single. Literally anybody else who has faced Manoah does not have a hit. So while I like Manoah, there's not enough sample size for me to say that I will comfortably start him, especially since the Angels have a pretty good left-handed hitting lineup, and then of course Mike Trout, no explanation needed. So gonna probably stay away from this game. It would not shock me at all if Toronto kind of beat up on the Angels tonight, but I'm just going to stay away from it with not a lot of data to scrutinize. If I am in this game, it'll be on Toronto's side, but again, I just don't have a lot of confidence in this game to go here. Game 10, we are in the desert where the Dodgers take on Madison Bumgarner and the Diamondbacks, and this was quite a one-sided just mash fest yesterday. The Dodgers just broke out for, I think it was 16 runs. Earlier today, I had thought that Tony Gonsolin was going to get the start, and I was all over Tony Gonsolin at 9,400. Him and Woodruff and Carrasco in the mid-9s. I was all fired up to make some kind of combination of. But instead, it's Ryan Pepiot. Not sure how to pronounce that. He has had 2 games, only pitched 7 innings. He has 8 strikeouts in those 7 innings, so quite a strikeout ratio. Only 3 hits, but he does have 8 walks, so the whip is really, really high. I imagine that is what has limited his innings per start, is the fact that he has had 8 walks in those 7 innings. But let's cover the Dodgers lineup, and there is a lot here. Against Bumgarner, who they have a lot of experience against. I mean, Bumgarner's been in the league for 14 years now. Hey, P, thanks for jumping in. Hope your weekend has started off well. how are things? Who are some players that you're looking forward to using tonight in your DFS slate for baseball? You haven't quite come to the outro, but we are on game 10 of 13, so you'll have a little bit to catch up on here after the show. But thanks for jumping in chat like you always do and checking out the show. But for the Dodgers lineup here, where do you start? Whoever starts at catcher today, I'm going to fire them up, especially if it's Austin Barnes. For 3,600, Austin Barnes in his career against Madison Bumgarner, 4 for 19 with 2 homers, averaging 1.7 points per plate appearance. And he's had a very good season, to be fair, hitting 240, slugging 520 for a catcher. That is outstanding. He's got his fair share of walks. If Austin Barnes is in the starting lineup, I'm going to use as much Austin Barnes as I can. I mentioned Jacob Stallings for the Marlins, and what appealed so much for Stallings was the stack of all the Marlins that I like. I'm hoping Austin Barnes is in the lineup because I like Austin Barnes' numbers against Bumgarner and the fact that I like so many Dodgers hitters against Madison Bumgarner. So if Austin Barnes is starting, that's going to be my second lock along with Jesus Sanchez. But even if Will Smith's starting at 5,300, he's going to be worth it if you have the money for him. Will Smith generally hitting cleanup for the Dodgers this year, hitting 260, 4 homers, 19 walks versus 23 strikeouts. So he's going to get on base, probably get driven in by this very potent Dodgers lineup. And then in his career against Madison Bumgarner, 3 for 7, a double and a homer. Scott Stallings, greater than Jacob Stallings. Well, right now, as of today, you are factually correct with Scott Stallings leading or tied for the lead at the Charles Schwab. Jacob Stallings has had a pretty good season, so make sure you rewind back and check what I'm saying about the Marlins and Braves. That's a game I'm just trying to attack full on. But coming back to the Dodgers lineup here, both of the catchers, whoever's playing, hopefully it's Austin Barnes. I like Will Smith as well. His numbers are great. And then the usual suspects here, Freddie Freeman in his career as a left-handed hitter against the left-handed throwing Bumgarner. Pretty darn good. Freddie Freeman only hitting 231, but 3 doubles, 2 homers. And what can you say about his season? Hitting 312, slugging 500. Has drawn as many walks as he's striking out. Hitting second in this loaded Dodgers lineup. Going to get the plate appearances. Like Freddie Freeman, you're going to be paying for it. It's well worth it especially if you're going to stack. Justin Turner has some fantastic numbers against Madison Bumgarner in his career. Turner is 19 for 75. That is a 253 average, but he has 4 doubles, 4 homers, quite a few walks. Turner has faced Bumgarner a lot, has had a lot of success. 4,900 is a little bit steep, but one that I am willing to do for a stack of Dodgers. And then Mookie Betts, not as much experience against Bumgarner, but the experience that he does have, very good, 3 for 9 in his career with a couple of walks. It's the fact that he's hitting leadoff and playing like Mookie Betts. So I've highlighted the leadoff, the number 2 hitter, whichever catcher is going to catch today, and then Justin Turner, who generally hits 5th or 6th. There's a lot to like here for the Dodgers today. And then on the other side, against Pepiot, not a lot of experience, only 2 starts in Pepiot's career, but one of them was against Arizona. The 2 players that had hits off of Pepiot that day, I've highlighted. Christian Walker had a homer, so he was 1 for 2 with a homer, and then Pavin Smith was 1 for 2 with a single. Not a lot that I like there. Having said that, though, I am not going to pay the $9,900 for Pepiot. I've highlighted Woodruff. I've highlighted Carrasco. There are quite a few other options I like a little bit cheaper than Pepiot. So that is where I am at with the Dodgers and Arizona game. So we now move to game number 11, which is the final team to make their debut on Calls. That is Pittsburgh. So we move to Petco Park, where the Pittsburgh Pirates take on the San Diego Padres in a very intriguing pitching matchup. Jose Quintana, 1-2, 2.43 ERA, has pitched really, really darn well this year for the Pirates. And the Pirates have been sneakily okay this season. Third in the NL Central. I don't know if that says more about the Pirates or the NL Central in general, but it is what it is. The Pirates are third in the NL Central. The players that I've highlighted here for the Pirates hitting-wise against Sean Manaea, Ke'Bryan Hayes, probably the best player for the Pittsburgh Pirates, 4,700. If I'm going to be up in this price range for third baseman, I'm definitely going Justin Turner. But Ke'Bryan Hayes has some pretty good numbers in his career against Manaea. Short career, so small sample size, but he's averaged 1.7 points per player appearance against Manaea. But Ke'Bryan Hayes hitting 265. He's on base almost 36% of the time. Now, he does not have any homers, so you're banking on him getting on base. He does lead this team in steals, generally hitting first or second for the Pirates, so you're going to get the plate appearances. And then a couple of speculative plays here. Michael Chavis, former Red Sox first baseman from his time with Boston facing Manaea, who used to be in Oakland. Chavis, 2 for 5 with a double, has had a pretty good offensive season, hitting 291, slugging 482, has 1.75 points per plate appearance. Chavis hitting right-handed, generally a power bat against the left-handed throwing Manaea. You like that? Could provide some upside there. And then finally, Ben Gamel, even though he's a left-handed hitter, his numbers against Sean Manaea are pretty good. 2 for 6 with a double. And surprisingly, Ben Gamel is second on this team in homers. Has quite a few, second on this team in doubles, actually. 2 steals. He walks half as many times as he does strikeouts, so 18 walks early on this season. Gamel hitting 270. There's some potential here with the Pittsburgh lineup. That means Manaea is not an auto include in your lineups. Now, Manaea, 55 strikeouts in 49 innings. 19 points per start. Manaea has pitched extremely well. And he certainly has the capability to dominate this Pirates lineup. But the Pirates have had some decent numbers against him. And then on the other side here, Jose Quintana, from his time in Chicago against some of these hitters for the Padres, but most notably against Eric Hosmer when Quintana was in Chicago with the White Sox. Hosmer in his time in Kansas City. Hosmer is hitting only 192 against Quintana in his career, 15 strikeouts, so Hosmer's not a way I want to go at first base. I'm actually going to highlight Robinson Cano at second from his time in New York with the Yankees. Robinson Cano is down here, 7 for 19, hitting 368 against Quintana in his career with a homer, a couple of walks. But the main play here, obviously, Manny Machado, only at 5,100 at third base. If I'm not going a Dodgers stack and using Justin Turner, I really like Manny Machado. Obvious statements are obvious. But his numbers against Quintana, 5 for 21, only 238, but it's a double and a homer, averaging 1.5 points per plate appearance. And then what's there to say about Machado's season so far? 367, slugging almost 600, getting on base 44% of the time. If you have the money for Machado, I highly recommend you using, unless you're going Justin Turner and a Dodger stack. But in Petco Park, I don't mind using some Pirates here, but I'm definitely going to be using Manny Machado. If Cano's in the lineup, I might think about a mini stack there. We'll probably have some Manaea use as well. So we move to the next to the last game on the slate tonight, and the pitcher that is probably going to be the most owned for very good reason. He dominated the Rangers last time out. It's Justin Verlander in Seattle to take on the Mariners. Verlander 6-1, 1.2 ERA, 10.5 is this price. He's going to be well worth it. I mean, the numbers on the Mariners against Verlander are just silly. Eugenio Suarez, 1 for 9. It is a homer, but 1 for 9 with 6 strikeouts. Jesse Winker, who I've highlighted, 1 for 10 or 2 for 10. One of those being a homer. He has 4 strikeouts. J.P. Crawford, 2 for 10, 4 strikeouts. Steven Souza Jr., if he plays, 2 for 11 with 3 strikeouts. I mean, Verlander has pretty much dominated these Mariners hitters. If the Mariners have gotten hits, they've actually went for homers, so that is a potential downside here for Verlander, but a pretty safe play, I would think, today. Again, averaging 25 points per start, 49 strikeouts in 52 innings. The whip at .75 is spectacular. Fire up Verlander, he's going to be pretty good. Now on the other side, against Chris Flexen for Houston, there are a few players that have some good numbers, but Flexen has actually pitched pretty well against the Astros in his own right. Flexen now has not had a great season so far. You see the record 1-6, an ERA just under 5, but he's not a strikeout pitcher. He's been getting hit quite a bit, so I like the Astros in this game. You have Martin Maldonado. Anytime I mention him, he generally goes over. But again, he has good numbers against Flexen. 3 for 9 with a double and a homer in his career. It just seems like anytime I plug in Martin Maldonado, he goes over. But the numbers say he has had success against Flexen in the past. Jose Altuve, anytime you have the money for Altuve, it's always going to be a decent play. He's only 3 for 13 in his career, but he does have a couple of walks. His propensity to steal bases, you know he's going to hit at the top of the lineup, so he's going to get the plate appearances. So I'll think about Altuve. I like Jazz Chisholm a whole lot more at roughly the same price. But if you're going to stack Astros, Altuve is a fine play. Yordan Alvarez, his numbers are silly good against Chris Flexen. Alvarez, 3 for 7, 2 homers in his career against Flexen. He's slugging almost 550 this season so far, averaging 2.14 points per plate appearance. If you have the money for Yordan Alvarez, it's a good play. And then Kyle Tucker has some really good numbers against Flexen in his career. 4 for 11 with a double, averaging 1.5 points per plate appearance. Tucker has slowed down a little bit from that torrid start. He's at 240, slugging 450, 1.7 points per plate appearance. I don't like Tucker's price, but for the stack of Astros, it's fair. So any exposure I have in this game at all is going to be on Houston's side. Like I said, Verlander's numbers against the Mariners are pretty darn silly. The Mariners hitters have tagged him for homers, but if they're not making contact, it's just going to be a long day. So last game on the docket, and one of the best values in the pitching market that I see, we are at the Coliseum where the Rangers take on Oakland. And Verlander's opponent last week when he dominated was John Gray. And John Gray pitched pretty darn well against the Astros. Now, John Gray, the season has not went well for him. He's 1-2, 5.14 ERA. But he is averaging 11 points per start, mainly due to the 27 strikeouts in 28 innings. Those 28 innings are in 6 starts, so you're not getting a lot of mileage out of John Gray. He's been hit around, gets a little bit wild. But against this really anemic Oakland offense, I think he's a pretty good play today, especially at 5,500. It allows you to spend up for a Justin Verlander or to get 2 of these big-time players like a Yordan Alvarez or a Mookie Betts. I really like John Gray today. And a lot of that being the A's hitters, only one of them has a hit against John Gray in their career. It's the player I've highlighted, Sean Murphy, the catcher. Now it is a homer, but he's only 1 for 1. Other players that could be usable: Seth Brown, power hitting left-handed first baseman for the Oakland A's. Speculative play, maybe Tony Kemp if he's leading off for the A's, but he's 0 for 4 in his career against John Gray. I really like John Gray today. And then on the other side, Cole Irvin is probably a decent play as well in the big ballpark that the Coliseum is, a pitcher's ballpark. The Rangers' offense has just been scuffling, almost as bad as Oakland's, which is saying something. Irvin 2-2, 3.21 ERA, pretty decently priced as well. But some of the Rangers hitters have had decent success against Irvin. Most notably, Marcus Semien, 3 for 7 with a double and a homer. Of course, that's in his time, probably in Toronto and before. But I do like Marcus Semien today. I like other second basemen more, especially since the Rangers' offense is struggling. But Semien does have good numbers. Charlie Culberson is a very, very bargain basement option if he is in the lineup. His numbers against Cole Irvin, not too bad. 7 for 18 with a double. Now, Culberson's only hitting .231 on the year with only 1 extra base hit, so you're using him only for the fact that he's a price saver and hoping he runs into a hit or two or gets driven in. And then a really, really interesting play that I like today, and I'm hoping he's in the lineup, is Eli White, especially if he's leading off today for the Rangers. Eli White, he's only hitting 197, but leads the Rangers in stolen bases. He's getting on base more than 30% of the time. For somebody who's hitting 197, that's a lot of walks, a lot of hit by pitches. He's getting on base, and then his numbers against Cole Irvin are pretty good. He's 3 for 7, all of them singles, but at 2,600 could provide some pretty good value for you. So there is a look at all 13 games. We're running a little bit over, but I promised we would see if there are any lineups out, so let me check that real quick. I mentioned that Baltimore's lineup was out at the start of the show, so let me bring up DraftKings here, figure out what lineups are out. Let's see, we have a few lineups out, it looks like. We've got 6 at least. No games have been rained out yet. So the full New York and Tampa Bay lineup is out. So let me take you to Tropicana here real quick. For the Yankees, Aaron Judge leading off today. So perhaps that 5,600 is more palpable with him getting even more plate appearances. And then Joey Gallo hitting 7th. So not the best, but he is at least in the lineup and has had a little bit of success against Jeffrey Springs. For Tampa Bay, Kevin Kiermaier leading off, Yandy Diaz hitting 2nd. So I really like that. Makes me think that I'm going to come to Tampa Bay even more so now if I'm going to come into this game. 4,900, a little bit pricey for Yandy Diaz. I do like that play at third base. And then Kevin Kiermaier has some good numbers against Tyone in his career. So that is that game. We have the full Baltimore and Boston lineup out. So let's take you to Fenway real quick. For Baltimore, the one player I've highlighted, Santander, he's hitting 3rd. If you want to use Cedric Mullins, I don't like the price at 4,400, but he is leading off his usual spot. Ryan Mountcastle has a couple of hits against Whitlock in his career. He's hitting 6th. Just not a lot of from Baltimore's side, which is why I'm so high on Garrett Whitlock. And then for the Red Sox, Christian Vasquez hitting 8th. Jackie Bradley Jr. hitting 9th. I really do like Jackie Bradley, even though he's only hitting 9th. I do think Boston's going to put up some numbers where he's going to get 4 plate appearances today. And then Devers hitting 2nd, and Arroyo is not in the lineup. So Christian Arroyo not in the lineup, so that takes away one of the shortstop options today. Then the other full game lineup we have is Cleveland in Detroit. So make sure this game actually goes off. This is one of the 2 games that has rain in the forecast. But for Cleveland, Owen Miller is he is hitting 4th. Excuse me. So Owen Miller hitting 4th, first or second base eligibility, like that, and Josh Naylor hitting 5th. And then for the Tigers, Robbie Grossman is leading off. Jonathan Scope is hitting 2nd. So that makes that a whole lot more intriguing, getting some more plate appearances today against Bieber. The numbers Scope has put up against Bieber makes that pretty darn interesting, I will say. Cabrera hitting 3rd and Tucker Barnhart hitting 9th. So those are the 3 full game lineups that we have out. We've run over a little bit on time, so thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate you all taking the time to watch and listen. P, thanks for jumping in chat like you always do and watching and supporting the show. Hope your weekend goes well. Remember, I am back tomorrow, Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, to cover Saturday night's slate of games as well. So for all of the May 27th MLB DraftKings contests that you enter, may all your bets be profitable.